Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Timelkov.
Hello, dear audience, and welcome back on The Leaders Who Care. Today we have a leader and a guest that I've known now for some time, and it's really a pleasure and honor to welcome someone who is deeply passionate about people thriving at their workplace. And she's coming from the energy industries, which we all need nowadays, especially in these current conditions of crisis. But above all, someone who really deeply cares about humanity and really people's growth and development in not only in organizations but overall in their lives. I'm really pleased to welcome Adja Ba. Adja, she is a chief people's officer in a all meaning of that. Really, a great leader and someone who really goes beyond the profits and margins. And Adja, welcome on the podcast.
Good morning, Marian, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all and looking forward to our talk today.
Adja, it's really, I know a little bit about your story and journey from our interactions, but you've been working for some of the most respectful companies in the energy industry for 23 years. Was it a conscious choice? How did you enter the industry, and what inspired you to be there?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. I've been, as you stated, for many years now working in the energy sector. It was a choice. I am originally from Senegal, West Africa, but I understood early on at a younger age that energy should be accessible to all. It should not be luxury. Therefore, what really drew me into this sector is or three elements mostly. One, energy, of course. Two, the environment. How do we really reduce our carbon footprint and what responsibility we have and how we try to get to net zero. Three, people. Understood that I did not start my career in HR, but I understood that people are the biggest assets to any organization. Therefore, having a people plan, a strategy around human capital will bring beyond profit, really success to any enterprise. So what really drew me to the energy sector is also playing my part in making sure that energy is accessible, equitable, and affordable to all.
Wow, and that's a great, really story to tell, starting from Senegal, arriving into really where you are with a lot of experiences and realizing along the way that people are so important. You mentioned that if a single secret to organizational success existed, it would be the recruiting, empowering, and retaining the top talent in the organization. This seems easier said than done, but how do you feel about organizations, and can we crack this? How can we crack this, basically? How could organizations deliver that systematically?
I think what the pandemic has taught us really is how do we get back to the basics? It's not rocket science, of course, but getting back to the basics and listening to our employees, what they're telling us. There has been a shift, and we've seen it since the pandemic around the psychological safety. What do they need? How, the sense of purpose. So for any organization to be successful in not only attracting talent, but how do you attract it, train, and retain talent once they join your organization? What will make them stay? And I would say, starting with the basics, how do you really create that employee value proposition where their life cycle within the organization, there's a sense of purpose. What will make them get up every morning and be motivated that, yes, there will be challenges, but there is a sense of engagement and loyalty to this company. It's how we treat them, right? It's how do we describe that journey within the organization, from the onboarding process, the recruitment process, once they're in the training programs, the career development that we put in place for them. Is it aligned with their own motivation? But you can only build that sense of alignment once you have those discussions and know your employees and understand their motivation, because they're all different. And of course, it can be a challenge to have a customized HR or customized human people plan for each employee. However, there is a potential to understand the uniqueness, everything around what motivates each and every one of them, and being able to build a consolidated approach, right, to your people strategy. So again, it's getting back to the basics, listening to your employees and crafting a plan that truly is aligned not only with their motivation, but also with the company's business strategy.
No, thank you. I hear a lot of stories nowadays, and there's a lot of technologies that are coming into play and tools. But it seems like the basics may not be there in first place. So you could put a lot of tools, a lot of really nice assessments and so forth. But really, what is important in essence is that sincere interest and care about your people. And often people say that middle management are really key to the scale up of that. Of course, it starts with the top management. If they don't have the support and vision, that will be difficult to execute. But how do you get the middle management on board to really implement that?
Definitely. Training might be simple, but most of the time, the middle management, it's how do you put in place a plan where we give them the tools to become best managers, right? Most of the time, they're first-time managers, and we don't invest enough in giving them not the tools, but the soft leadership competencies and skills needed to manage a team, taking for granted that when we promote them to that management level, that they will be successful. We have to set them up for success, and setting them up for success is giving them the training, understanding how do you build up your team, how do you create that safety net, again, the psychological safety where there is a two-way street feedback, communicating with their teams. And most of the time, we take that for granted. They don't know when it is the first time being a manager, what do I need to be successful? And it is a responsibility of not just the HR team, but the organization as a whole to put in place a system where we do have a program, a training, learning, development program in place that will help first-time managers manage their team, empower their team to get to the success that's needed. So training is important. I will say also mentoring, being shadowing another manager within the organization, understanding what are the key elements for success and what culturally the organization is requesting, because every organization is different. So some of the soft skills or leadership skills that are needed in one organization might be different in another. However, understanding the values and the culture of that organization and designing a management style or a leadership style that would truly bring the best value in each and every employee is definitely important.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really key and absolutely fully support. Within the human resources function, obviously people at the center of pretty much everything. It's centered around humans, but human beings are so dynamic and complex at the same time, unpredictable sometimes. And what have you found are the most important skills to have as an HR, successful HR leader, to navigate successfully and really make a difference?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say one, being able to create a safe environment where employees will talk. So a sense of trust is important. Creating value, because again, we often talk about the Maslow pyramid of need. It's understanding, if you don't know your employees, then it is tough to really create that space and understanding what elements, what is the recipe for this organization to be successful. So for HR, I would say one, creating a trustworthy environment so that they feel safe to truly express their needs and the challenges that they have, because we often talk about success, but also being able to fail and fail fast. And is it a safe environment where employees feel that they can make mistakes and recover from that? The business partnership, we discussed that a lot in HR, but what does it truly mean? Being the trusted advisor, being agile and flexible following, the pandemic, the current tight labor market that we're in, it does require an evolution of the HR function and skills. It is more now centered around the advising piece. Are we agile and flexible enough that we understand the challenges that the workforce is facing, the demographic dynamics that we see, right? The millennials, what they require, completely different from our generation. What is their motivation? So taking all of it and trying to make a recipe for success, but it all starts with building that trusting environment is key.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Indeed. So, in creating a safe environment, what are the positives? So, what do you see when people have safe environment?
Performance, high performance, retention, reducing the turnover rate, and a sense of belonging. When we really talk about retention, it's not that quiet. I don't mean the quiet quitting where you have just warm bodies in, but not truly engage in the company and their objectives, but being involved and feeling a part of loyalty and belonging to the organization, speaking up, challenging the status quo, being an active member of the organization. I think if we are successful creating that safe environment, then you have a completely different dynamic in how employees interact. There's always a danger in having a quiet workforce. Having a quiet workforce, meaning you not putting in place safety net where employees feel they can disagree with management. Of course, it has to be within all respect of the context that you're in, but being able to truly challenge and have a healthy discussion is good for any organization. And you see it in the way employees interact. They feel involved, they're willing to go above and beyond, and even taking additional projects because they care. But you can only welcome that. That is a result of how you invest as a leader or as a manager in your workforce, and creating a sense of accountability and empowerment, not micromanaging your teams, but giving them enough room to truly have that innovation and sense of creativity to come up with different solutions, thinking outside the box to bring you maybe something beyond the objectives that you had set for your team.
I honestly have seen that, been blessed to see the power of exceptionally gifted talent in safe environment. I think it's amazing the kind of growth and the impact and the joy that is derived from this. And what's the opposite of like having a quiet workforce? What is the even though the organization is well established, but if the leadership is so hierarchical and old fashioned where you're not really you're afraid. Let's say you literally have fear. What does fear means and causes for organizational growth and business development?
I mean, we talked about the psychological safety. When you have fear, there's no such thing as a psychological safety net because there's a toxic work environment. You see if the organization has an EAP system, there's an increased usage of it. Employees there's a higher rate of absence in the workplace, whether it's illnesses or vacation days or others, but they're no longer present in the workplace. And that toxic work environment will also not only impact their well-being and an increased burnout in the workforce, but also the bottom line because productivity will drop. And if you are in an environment where safety could be an issue, you also observe an increased number of accidents in the workplace, and so all of it impacts the bottom line of the organization. That's why it is so key to anticipate and create a healthy workforce. And it is a responsibility of all peers, managers, and culture. We talk a lot about culture, but what is the definition of culture? And what do you put in place to have that healthy culture so that you can prevent having a workforce that is completely disengaged and not a healthy workforce? Because a toxic work environment is nothing more detrimental for any organization.
And I also find as well that is just it's so many not only business reasons, but also if the leader has not created that safety environment, in the long run, it will be not sustainable for the leader either, or the executive team, because they will continuously having to make decisions because the workforce is afraid to take them, and they will be escalated to them, which will lead to overload of the management team as well, of dropping productivity. So it's no good either for anyone, really, I think, in the organization, even for the leaders themselves that may be aware or not aware of the situation in the company. If there's no that safety and if there's fear, basically, that needs to be, if such thing exists in an organization, how do you change that? Adja? What are the or divisions, or because in large corporates it's not always, the culture is not the same across the divisions. Sometimes it's in departments or other areas.
Mhm.
How do you start that journey if organization want to change, want to be better, more inclusive, more neurodiverse, or really have that safety for people to stimulate creativity, productivity, and innovations?
Yeah,
Where do you to?
starts with the values, the mission of the organization. What is the bottom line, and what do they stand for? And these values, once you define them, they shouldn't just be on a wall saying we are respectful, we are inclusive, but how do we lead by example? And when we see that there is disconnect between those values that we call for and how we behave as managers, we need to quickly adjust. And what is also important is, yes, alignment, but not creating what I will call a star culture where you have some high performing talent, but they perform well, what I will call on the technical side. But as far as soft skills and leadership skills, they do not exhibit what the company's values are. In those cases, it is important to make a change and make a change fast, because what starts as a small derailment and misalignment of values that you think you can just put the band-aid on and say, oh, it's okay, he's such a great talent, in the long term is going to be a problem to your organization. So alignment and accountability is so important, and not allowing those star talent to really hijack and take over and say, okay, because he's a great talent, we allow him to behave, to misbehave and not embody the leadership skills that are required. So that's very important to be aligned. And also, I will say, when a culture is healthy, there's the sense of, we talked about speaking up, right? Being able to express that there's a problem. How do you fix it? You have to have that speak up culture, where when they identify that something needs to be fixed, there's no such thing as fear, that they feel heard, that we do listen, and pointing out to a situation and putting in place the corrective action. To me, it takes courage, right? Which we tend to lack at times, but leadership takes courage, and you have to have the courage to say, this is the type of culture and organization that I want to build for my employees. This is what I want to put in place so that they feel empowered to wake up in the morning and come in and work with us, roll up their sleeves and get the work done. But you can only get that when you are a courageous manager, willing to fix the problems and not be taken hostage by the star talent who are not exhibiting the values and what the organization really is striving for.
Adja, there's a lot of innovations coming, as we all hear, and AI is playing a key role in number of decisions. It's enabling a lot of people to do things way faster. So, from an HR point of view, what do you see the future of work? How is that going to look like, do you think? If you look at the next 10 years, and that may be your vision of what would you want to happen, perhaps, but also what do you think it's coming?
I would say, moving from, yes, we'll have the automation, there's AI, there's a lot of, it's helping us build efficiencies. And how are we using, I know for the HR field, using data to drive performance and redefine the HR strategy and how we better partner with businesses and different departments. So the future of the workforce, I would say, is building on that employee experience, because we have better efficiencies. How do we use the talent we have in place to innovate and to empower the teams to build better efficiencies? Things are moving at a faster rate. So it is no longer the traditional approach of, okay, finding resources, plugging them here and there, and having a plan, but being flexible and moving fast enough, upskilling, reskilling. Today, priority could be in one department, tomorrow, or even in parallel. How do you use your resources differently to match what the market is requiring, and even as a company, what you need to grow? So it is not one size fits all, but that training also, and anticipating, knowing what your core skills and competencies, what you have available, but also anticipating in the future, what do you need and how do you plan for that? So training, learning, development, I cannot stress it enough, is important at a different level, not just the classic attending courses, but again, sponsorship, mentorship, job shadowing, is all part of the ecosystem of learning and development for any organization. And I think the future of the workforce is that agility and the flexibility. Those enterprises who show their ability to really move faster, efficiently, and optimizing and using their resources to the best of their abilities will thrive.
Wow, that's I think it's very exciting what's coming, but it's also very challenging for organizations that perhaps are much larger and they have to change fast. And of course, I have a dream to see. Imagine we had a world where everybody thrive at work, not survive. Like and because we spend most of our time at work, and it's so important that you really feel empowered, you're thriving, you feel because that's health. That your family, your friends, your company will feel that, and it's. It's really getting those tools or getting those innovations to help us, but it comes down to leadership after all, and as you said, the core, the basics, principles. And what do you think is the role of care? And when you talk about care, what in the context of business, what does it mean to have perhaps a care culture, or just the power of care in the business, profitable business?
Yeah. Care is really creating the safe culture where employees feel that there is alignment. We talk a lot about corporate social responsibility, the 3 Ps, and the alignment: people, planet, profit. And previously, we've seen organization calling for certain values or motivation and purpose externally, but not being aligned internally. And we see now the power of social media. Everything that you call for as a company, it better be aligned, because if it's not, what you communicate to your external customers, the same needs to be experienced by your internal customers. So again, the employee value proposition and alignment on, is what you calling for truly how you live it internally and externally? That alignment is important. It's about creating value also for your customers, internal and external. And you cannot call for safety and caring for the environment when internally your employees are not feeling it, not in the way of your HR policies, not in the way you drive your business. So I would say care start with respecting who you are, and you're keeping your word as an organization, and creating that alignment for your internal and external customers.
Thank you. That's really a great way of showing this, and where organizations and people can and leaders can embrace and even start a journey if they're on at the beginning, or they may be very advanced. And hopefully, we see more of those organizations where they're thriving and making a positive impact, and ideally blessing to humanity. That's really what I believe business and growth and profitability and care could unite. It doesn't have to go against each other. And is there, when you look at, if you're starting out your career now, and maybe the future generation or the young generation they're already very aware. There's a lot more access to information. There's a lot of choice. So one of the biggest challenges we see for young people is, what do I do next? I want to climb that mountain, but which one is it exactly? And so there's a lot of, I guess, anxiety for speaking to a lot of young people, and Gen Z especially. If somebody's considering career in HR, what would be your advice to them? So imagine you're 18 years old or 21 and you're starting out now. What are the lessons, especially if you're embark um, on HR journey? Because often is a journey, even if you say they might not realize it. So you come to these realizations, but what would be some valuable advice for those who are considering career in HR?
The obvious piece is you have to care for people. And caring for people, meaning truly, are you willing to take the time to listen? One thing that I know in my many years of HR is that I always have a new aha moment in my interaction with employees, because you need to take an approach of knowing nothing and really literally starting from scratch. And the communication and your interaction with employees will teach you so much. Everything that I've known or taken for granted has been completely destroyed over the years, because by interacting and communicating with them, you learn different things. And you also realize that at the end of the day, people want to be loved. They want that care. And they just want to listen to their interests, whatever it is. But you need, your role as HR is listening enough so that you can craft a people strategy plan that matches both what the employee is looking for, what their motivation is, and what the organization is thriving for. So almost like a translation of needs from both sides, that your role as HR is to combine and create the sense of purpose for the organization and for employees, so they have a sense of belonging. So I would say getting into the HR function is taking different ingredients and creating really a recipe for success for the organization and for their employees.
It sounds like a master chef,
It is. It is. And one recipe, again, some people like it spicy, others, there are some ingredients they don't like, but it's about taking it and making, that best meal for each and everyone. And again, when we talk about retention and engagement, it's that purpose and tapping into the Maslow pyramid. Where's your employee at? Are they at the survival level, or do they really want to belong and understand, okay, I finally feel like I belong in this organization? So whatever it is that drives them, building almost a universal employer brand so that they feel that they're really part of the organization. But again, you can only do that if you are aligned with the values of the organization and leading by example what you're trying to achieve as a leader and as a company.
What is the healthy balance between driving business growth and care culture? Or does it have to be a balance? It's the care culture provides the business growth, is the foundation. So again,
it does. You need a balance, right? Because advocating for both is not easy, because at the end of the day, yes, you need to create a culture where employees feel that they're part of this organization and can thrive. But at the same time, you also, the profit part, you also, the organization has certain business objectives that they need to achieve. And it is important to have that balance between the two. How you achieve it is creating a sense of the purpose is important for employees, but also not to the detriment of their well-being and the benefits that you put in place, and how you manage their performance is important. So defining objectives that are aligned with those of the business, and individually, how do you contribute toward the business success is extremely important. And it is all about communication and always explaining what the purpose of the company and what they're trying to achieve, or the OKR for the organization, or whatever form of performance management that they have in place. But it is always, always essential to communicate what the mission, values, vision of the organization is, and hiring talent that will are completely aligned with achieving that mission. Because if you don't share the same vision and mission for the organization, you can recruit the talent, but then retention will become an issue, whether short term or long term. So from the recruitment phase to building that employee life cycle, there has to be a balance between the two. How do we achieve business performance while each employee and teams and departments also do contribute to the macro needs for the organization?
And coming to that point, thank you for sharing. I honestly believe communication is so central to this, because people want to know exactly what's expected from them. How do you measure success? What are the KPIs, OKRs, for them? And of course, what is their contribution, to the success of the business? Not to be like a self-enrichment game type of thing, but that should be the benefits, as you say, and the well-being will be also a byproduct, or will come because of their serving, because of their really productivity as well. And I think it's not easy to balance the two, but is definitely possible through right communication and very clear vision and objectives, and individual performance management, as you said, to what success looks like. That is closely linked to their personal goals as well.
Yeah.
So I it's really in coming to that point of really care and balance in all this. How do you take care of yourself?
I listen, talk to my team. So I think care also start with self-awareness. What are my weakest points and what do I need to improve on? And finding silent spaces to regenerate and regain energy. So when you're in HR, the interaction with employees, it can be constant. So there's a lot of communication, interaction. So the best way I take care of myself is earning or taking moments of silence where I can truly self-reflect and assess, what's next and where I need to improve on.
Fantastic. Well, I wish that you continue this and help others to do the same, to take a good care of them, so they can also be more resourceful and really help others. A final question here: if there was no limits to you personally, what would be one thing that you would change for more caring or better world, that will contribute for more caring or better world?
One thing that I will change, I will say, our understanding and approach of diversity, being intentional about it. There's a lot of talk around diversity, and we tend to limit it to the metrics, measuring how successful we are on diversity, but really not treating the core importance of it. And once we hire a diverse workforce, how do we put in place and build inclusion is important, inclusion and belonging. So, and redefining that journey for the diverse workforce so that they feel that they truly belong to this organization. So if there's one thing that I will change is our approach for diversity and how we build and create a workforce and a safe environment where we move beyond just the metrics of checking the box to say we have X number of diverse employees, but truly getting to a diverse workforce where there's no the sense of belonging is there, and it is even no longer a question, I would say. So definitely the question for diversity.
Adja, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of those insights and really thoughts. That's been a great value, and I thank you. Blessings go out to you and your family in your work you do, and thank you for being a leader who care and blessing to humanity.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.